let's walk through some sewing essentials to get you started with sewing. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are going to be going over some sewing essentials to get you started in 2024. So let's say you just got a sewing machine, you're trying to figure out what you need for sewing. Today's video is going to go through all of those different items. Let's first talk about the sewing machine though. I am not going to be going through different models in this video, saying which one's better or not. As you can see, I have a Brother sewing machine. My machine before that was a Singer sewing machine. I liked both of them. They were both great. Right now for my sewing machine, the main thing I would say is that you want to make sure that you have a few different stitches you can use. So a straight stitch, a zigzag stitch, maybe a buttonhole. These are really going to get you started. You want to make sure that it's a machine you feel comfortable with and that you can easily learn about. So there's a manual available, there are YouTube videos online if needed, and that's going to really help you get started. Next, you're going to need some thread. Now, if you go to the fabric store, if you really go to any store that has craft supplies, you may see there are tons of different types of threads. Really what you're going to want, especially when you're just getting started, is an all-purpose thread. So maybe all-purpose, it may be dual duty. These are all by Coats and Clarks. I highly recommend them. I did a video on my sewing empties from 2023 and I had a ton of threads that I had used through. This is just a really great thread that will not snap when you're using it. There are lots of different types of threads depending on what you're using. So if you are doing more embroidery work, you'd want to look for an embroidery thread. If you are just getting started doing little craft projects, doing small DIYs, starting with cotton material, that all-purpose thread is going to be great for you. In addition, just if you want to keep those threads handy, I like to keep some of the ones that I'll use often in like a little coffee mug, just something close to me, as I do end up getting a lot of threads, and this can be easier for those colors that I am constantly looking for, just to have them on hand so that I know where they are and I'm not searching through all of my items for them. And it allows me to see which ones I need more of. Now the next item you're going to need are some pins. So pins come in lots of different shapes and sizes, and besides pins you can also get like quilting clips if you are really looking at getting started with quilting. Now as you can see, these are two different options. Now when I got started, I did start using pins, and I find them a little easier to try to get your fabrics to stay together. Quilting clips can be great though, especially if you have kids, if you have pets, there's no sharp edges on them. So this is just like a little clip that you can use to attach two pieces of fabric together. They are fantastic for quilting as it allows you to get all of those layers together and just hold everything in place. They can also be really good for very thick fabrics that the pins can be a little harder to go through. So depending on what you are looking at doing, that's something that you could look into. But really, if you are just getting started, I would highly recommend getting some pins. You can get them in 100 packs, you can get them in smaller packs. I use this magnetic holder as I do find it easier, but of course a pin cushion works just as well. Now pins do come in different sizes and shapes, so as you can see here I have that bigger pin, and then I do have some of these tinier pins. Really, if you're just getting started, I find the bigger pins are easier to work with as well as keep track of, where the smaller ones, they are easier to fall on the ground, where these bigger, there is a size difference between them. So it really depends on, your living situation, how many people you have. Are you going to be in a room all to yourself that you're able to keep track of those pins, or do you want something that's a little bigger, easier to keep track of so that you know where it goes? Next, let's talk about fabric shears. Scissors, a rotary cutter, however you are going to be cutting your fabric, you need to make sure that you have something specifically dedicated to your fabric. I love these scissors. I got them from Joann Fabrics. They are really, really nice quality and they work very, very well. The big thing with fabric shears is that over time when you're cutting your fabric, you can start to dull those scissors just because the fabric is thick. So you really want to make sure that you have scissors specifically for your fabric, and then you have another set of scissors specifically for paper. I also have these scissors that I had gotten from Singer. They are also really nice quality. Lots of different options that you can get out there, from very expensive to cheaper. Just making sure you have a set of scissors for paper. So my gray ones are for paper, and then a set of scissors for fabric. You keep those separate. You do not let them cross. You do not use the paper scissors on fabric or the fabric scissors on paper. That way you can kind of keep your scissors lasting as long as possible. And then of course, if you're doing quilting, you could look into a rotary cutter, but really when you're getting started, highly recommend fabric shears just so you get used to cutting out fabric, getting all of those details that you need. Next, you're going to want some sort of tape measure. So as you can see, I have this very flexible tape measure. It works really, really well. This is great for sewing clothing, for doing small craft projects. If you are quilting, Maybe you want to look into some sort of ruler, as this can make it really easy for cutting out your fabric, understanding how large or small something is when you have that ruler paired with this rotary mat, as you can see below. If you're just getting started though, a tape measure is totally fine. You can get these any craft store or online. And then next, since you are just starting out, you're gonna want a seam ripper. I use a seam ripper so often, unfortunately. It just comes with sewing. You're gonna want one that you feel comfortable with. Seam rippers come in multiple different sizes, so you can test out if a large one or a small one is better for you. I find the large ones a little easier, but for very detailed projects that you need to take the seams out of, sometimes a small one does work better. While no one wants to admit they're gonna need a seam ripper, definitely have at least one or two on hand. That way you are ready when the time comes. Then the next item that I would say is to have some hand needles. Hand needles are a great way to finish off projects, to add buttons to projects, to add snaps to projects. They really come in handy for a lot of different small craft items. So when you're just starting sewing, a lot of those beginning sewing projects are very crafty little things, and they can also be related to clothing. So just making sure that you have everything you need. You can get big packs of these. As you can see, these hand needles come with a lot of different sizes too. So really you just have to get that one pack and you get multiple different sizes depending on what you're going to be using. Also be prepared, sometimes these can tend to snap over time if you use them for too long. So just having a lot on hand so you don't run into an issue where they all break. I hope this helped you though get started with your 2024 sewing goals. If you did like it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and more beginning sewing content will be coming out soon. Thanks for watching.